Story that we're looking at in Acts chapter 20 today that's always been just fascinating to me. And it's tucked away here right in the middle of Acts chapter 20. Like, I don't know. It's not as well known as maybe a lot of the other stories in Acts or in the New Testament as a whole. But it's a neat one. It's just tucked away here in the middle of Paul's like travels. He's on his way back to Jerusalem, and anyhow, flip open here, Acts chapter 20, starting in verse 7. It says, "On the first day of the week, when we were gathered together to break bread, Paul talked with them, intending to depart on the next day, and he prolonged his speech until midnight. They're in the city, a area called Troas, okay? That's what we got from, they're there 7 days. In verse 6, we talked about it yesterday. Troas is up in the northwestern tip of Asia Minor, modern-day Turkey. Okay, so he's there for 7 days. First day of the week, they're gathered together to break bread. Paul talks to them, intending to depart the next day, okay? So this is the day before he's leaving. He's been there 7 days, and now tomorrow he's leaving. All right, he prolonged his speech until midnight. So I don't know when he got there. They were gathered together to break bread, verse 7. That means supper time. Like, roughly, I don't know exactly when they ate supper. Was it 5 o'clock? Was it 6, 7, 8? I don't know. But they're breaking bread together. That probably refers to sharing communion. It might just mean supper. Either way, that's what time it is, and he speaks to them until midnight. So whatever period of time, if they eat a late supper at 9 o'clock, that's still 3 hours till midnight. If they eat a regular supper, regular for us, at 5 or 6, obviously it's even longer. Anyway, it's a long time, even if they had a late supper. In verse 8, there were many lamps in the upper room where they were gathered, and a young man named Eutychus, sitting at the window, sank into a deep sleep as Paul talked still longer. So he's past midnight. The guy is asleep. He's a young man. He's sitting in the window. He falls asleep, and being overcome by sleep, he fell down from the third story and was taken up dead. But Paul went down and bent over him, and taking him in his arms, he said, 'Do not be alarmed, for his life is in him.' And when Paul had gone up and had broken bread and eaten, he conversed with them a long time until daybreak, and so it departed. And they took the youth away alive, and were not a little comforted." I don't know, like that's a remarkable story. And it's just kind of tucked away, and he moves on, and he talks to them until daybreak, and then he goes. He departs, okay? And you know what? Let's keep on reading and see where he goes. Might as well fill this out. He says, "But going on ahead of the ship, we," meaning Luke, who's writing the book of Acts, and these other traveling missionary partners that were mentioned yesterday, "we set sail for Assos, intending to take Paul aboard there, for so he had arranged, intending himself to go by land." So if you look at a map from where they're at in Troas down to Assos, it's kind of a peninsula, and they're sailing around it, and he's taking the shortcut by land. Okay. Anyhow, intending himself to go by land, and so he met us at Assos, port city, and we took him on board and went to Mytilene, and sailing from there, we came the following day opposite Chios. The next day we touched at Samos. The next day we went to Miletus, and for Paul had decided to sail past Ephesus so that he might not have to spend time in Asia, for he was hastening to be at Jerusalem, if possible, on the day of Pentecost. Now, if you were to look at all these little towns on a map, these places, from Troas, where this Eutychus guy falls off the window, they go to Assos. From Assos, they go to Mytilene. From Mytilene, they go to Chios, then to Samos, then to Miletus. Okay? It's all south. They're headed south, and he's on his way to Jerusalem, if possible, for the day of Pentecost, it says in verse 16. So he's in a hurry, and he's skipping down, down, down. Okay? Now, that's not the main point. I just want you to understand what's going on here. Some of these are islands, that are just on the way. If they're traveling by sea, so they stop at these islands. Some of them are port cities in modern-day Turkey. Either way, it's southbound. So look at this thing. He's there for 7 days in a city, a place called Troas, northwestern tip of Turkey. He's there for supper or something, and he talks till midnight. A kid, and I think it's a kid. It says he's a young man. Verse 12 calls him a youth. I don't know exactly how old, but I think this is a kid. I think maybe like a middle school sort of person. I'm guessing just based on this kind of context clues here. So it's a young man. We'll call him a young man, whatever. Third story, Paul's been talking since supper time through midnight. The kid falls asleep. Man, I get it. He falls out the window, and he says he's taken up dead. Paul says, oh, don't worry, there's still life left in him. And they took the youth away alive. Wait, no, sorry. Let me back up a bit. It says there's still life in him. Do not be alarmed, his life is in him. And when Paul had gone up and broken bread and eaten, he conversed with them a long while until daybreak, and so departed. And they took the youth away alive and were not a little comforted. So when I read that Paul led a Bible study teaching, and it says conversing, all night long. They broke bread together sometime after midnight. That's what he originally went there to do, and I guess they don't even get to it until after midnight, or maybe it's a midnight snack or something. They ate supper, and now they're still awake, so they eat again. In the middle of it all, this kid dies, and he's like, okay, whatever, he's okay. Let's get back to talking. Like, that's what we're here for. Let's talk all night. And then at daybreak, they take the youth away, and we're not a little comforted. Luke always uses that "not a little" phrase. It just means a lot. They were very comforted. So, as you would be. So what's the main event happening in this story? It's a few verses, verses 7 through 16. Okay, short little story, just one of the many little anecdotes that happens on all of Paul's missionary journeys. He goes town to town. Every now and then it tells us some information, what happens in one of these towns. In this case, it's a kid falling out a window and dying and coming back to life and whatever. Is that the main event? As I read this, I'm not even sure. It's almost like that's like an interruption to the main event. It's a noteworthy interruption, but Paul's there to teach. He's there for this all-nighter conversation. He's only in town for 7 days. This is the last day of it, so he's going to break bread with them, and he has an opportunity here, and they're willing to listen, so he'll talk all night long, telling them, I assume, about Jesus, teaching the Bible. Some kid falls out a window and dies, and Paul's like, yeah, okay, let's, if it's dead, we're going to have to do all this stuff, find the family, do all this other stuff. What if we just bring him back from the dead so we can get back to what we're up to here, which is talking about Jesus? And then in the morning when I'm finally done and I really do have to go, well, then they can take him home too. He's fine. He'll be okay. I mean, it's remarkable. And what if that happened in the middle of a church service? Somebody dies. Wouldn't it just kind of stop the church service? And they come back from the dead? I don't know. It never happened in my church. I don't know what exactly I would do. But it's almost as though, verse 11, when Paul had gone up and broken bread and eaten, he conversed with them a long while until daybreak, and so departed. He's just, yeah, whatever, raise a kid from the dead. Let's talk some more. I mean, I guess they had some questions. I guess there was a lot to talk about. I wish it kind of told us what they talked about. I don't know. But isn't that remarkable that Paul he's that eager. Like, there's so many remarkable things here. Let's focus. Let me get into where we're going with this. He's only there for 7 days. That's what it tells us in verse 6. He's there for 7 days. He had a very limited amount of time to do what needs to be done. He had been in Corinth for like a year and a half, for Ephesus for 2 or 3 years, and some of these other towns he's there for 3 weeks, whatever. He bounces around. But this one, he's only there a very short time. They don't even have time to wrangle up an angry mob to chase him out of town. That's how short he is in Troas. And so he's going to make the best of it. He doesn't care about his own sleep. He doesn't care about his comfort. He doesn't seem to be interested in that stuff. He's interested in how much of the gospel can I give to these people. and I'll stay up all night. If they'll stay up listening, I'll stay up. If they fall asleep and fall out the window and die, I'll raise them from the dead because, man, there's more they need to hear. So come on, kid, come back to life. You have more to learn. Let's do this all night long. This kid's interrupting his Bible study, dying in the middle of a Bible study. We can't have that. Come on, Eutychus, get back on your feet, get upstairs. We have more to talk about. that seems to be what happened. And all you other guys in a panic and crying and whatever carrying on you're doing about this whole thing, man, settle down. There's more to do here. That's just a run-of-the-mill miracle, guys. Let me teach you more about Jesus, and you'll see plenty more of those. Don't worry. There's time for that, but you have more to learn. I'm only here 7 days, and I leave in the morning. So let's focus. Let's focus, guys. I don't know. When I read it, I chuckle. That's what I see. I see a guy so driven to be in the gospel, sharing it, that the miracle, as amazing as it is, isn't even the main focus. It's almost an interruption to the main focus. Okay, so Paul is going to travel by land. The next morning, he talks all night. The next morning, he's traveling. See you guys. Glad we had a chance to meet. I'm out of here. I have to go. I'm headed for Jerusalem by Pentecost. We need to hurry. I've been around so long, from town to town to town. I don't have many days left. All right, and we will keep reading, but going to Jerusalem isn't going to be a party for him. He's going to get arrested there, and he kind of knows it. And the closer he gets, the more they warn him of that. So he's going there because he feels that the Lord is drawing him, constraining him. We'll see tomorrow, he says. But what if this little chapter 20, couple verses that we just read, was descriptive of your life? That everything that happens is gospel-centered, is spreading the gospel-centric. And all the other stuff is okay, that's a distraction. We'll deal with our disruptions, make sure we fix them, but we're going to get right back to it. I feel like in my life, the interruptions are often running my life, and the gospel is always winding up in the back seat. I'm not proud of that. That's not a good thing, but I feel like that is the default position often, where, man, I don't have time to really be out there doing this. There's so many other things going on. And then even when you're in the middle of it, other interruptions come along. And so Paul leverages the interruption, which was obviously a bad thing. Kid falls asleep and dies in the middle of your sermon. That's a bad disruption. He leverages that disruption. All right, we're going to see the power of God on display here. Okay, Satan meant it for evil. God's going to mean it for good. Meant to disrupt where we were going with things. Let's just heal him. That power of healing, of resurrection, is going to be on display. That's going to speak. That's going to kind of put a bold highlighter and underline to everything I'm saying. And now maybe they'll listen a little bit better. Maybe they won't fall asleep because, man, there's more to talk about. What if my life and yours looked like that? That the gospel, that sharing the gospel, spreading the gospel, teaching the gospel, talking about the gospel, Bible study, gospel study, conversation was more important to you than anything, than tomorrow's plans. You're willing to stay up all night to do it. And he's not alone. It's not just he's up all night studying his Bible, being a scholar. He's leading a group of other people that are that keen and eager to hear it and listen to it and take notes, that they're willing to do it. And it looks to me, if I'm reading this right, that the kid Eutychus goes back upstairs, and I'm going to pay attention a little better now, Paul. Sorry about that. It's, in the morning, it looks like they take him away alive. Like, it means he went back up the stairs to listen better. Maybe not in the window this time, kid. What if your life was just gospel-centered, that was your whole schedule, and everything else was just an interruption to your schedule, that you found a way to put the gospel into that interruption and then back moving ahead? Now, I know life is crazy. I know you're busy. I've got kids. I've got the wife. I've got administrative jobs at church that, man, they're whatever. But what if all these things were just avenues for the gospel to spread? What if what you consider to be the interruption was just a greater chance to highlight the gospel. And then, of course, get right back to the gospel that you're pursuing, the way you're pursuing to spread it. But what if the interruptions were also part of the same message? What if you didn't regard busyness of your schedule as an interruption, but just as another opportunity for the gospel? And then, of course, eliminate any busyness that isn't possible. Like if it's not possible to turn the thing into the gospel, if the thing is just some kind of sin or whatever, then just don't have that. But if there's an opportunity to turn your busy, hectic, crazy lifestyle that's full of disruptions and interruptions, if you use those to present the gospel in a new angle, finish that job, and then get right back to the same course of action that you were on with the gospel. What if your life was just defined that way? What if the people in your life, what if we build a movement of people like that? I don't know what happens to these guys. He moves on. I don't know what happened in Troas after this. But I bet you if they're willing to stay up all night with him and they see a miracle in front of their eyes, I bet you some stuff stuck deeply, even if he was only there a week. But it stuck. And you know what? We don't even have that excuse because you've got pastors and churches and Bibles on hand everywhere in the English-speaking world. So we don't even have that excuse of Paul's only in town 7 days. We can do this every day. We can learn. We can go deep. So start a Bible study, attend a Bible study, lead a Bible study, get involved, use your interruptions in life as opportunities to present the gospel in a new way, and never, ever stop. God bless you. We're going to look into Paul. We're into partway through chapter 20. We'll move on ahead with it. Paul is not able to stop at Ephesus, but he's close enough that he's able to send for them to meet with him, and has some very important stuff to share with them here throughout the rest of the chapter 20. So we'll look at that tomorrow. God bless you. Right at noon every day, you can tune into this, and I'll see you at noon tomorrow. Also, if you're around here, if you're in York Springs area, today is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 3 days this week. We have Vacation Bible School at Grice Park down the road. That is for all kids. If you've got kids, if your neighbors have kids, if your aunt, uncle, whatever has kids, you are welcome to bring them to it, 6:30 to 8. They are going to hear the gospel, have a chance to respond to the gospel with faith. Praise the Lord.